Kamaru Usman, the Nigerian Nightmare, defeated Jorge Masvidal at UFC 251. Just as I hedged my bets and predicted, I've got Fayez returning. We did a little bit of a lead up to the fight, and I've got Omar X right in the middle, refereeing it, and he's probably got some questions. But Fayez, what did you think of the result? And did wrestling win the day, do you think? Have we lost Fayez? Omar X, it's your time to shine.
I think it was an absolute disgrace that the Spanish fighter, a Hispanic, or a brown person just like me, was only given 6 days for the biggest fight of his life. 6 days.
He grabbed the opportunity. I'm sure he's happy with the money. Why is it a disgrace to offer someone an opportunity?
It's an opportunity that he did not need. This man was one of the most sought after fighters in the whole company, and he was ready to take Usman on when the time was right. Usman was already fighting. He was going to fight another man. He had been training for perhaps 6, 7, 8 weeks with his opponent, Usman's opponent. He was on his couch having pizzas. He had no idea, and Dana White just rings him up and says, "Hey, get ready." In 6 days, it's just unfair.
I'm sure that Jorge Masvidal doesn't regret at all the loss that he picked up after 6 days' notice. It's one hell of a story. Fayez said this before the fight: it's win-win, because you take the fight on short notice and you lose. You put on a good show, and you regarded it as a hero. And MMA doesn't have this myth of, or not as many undefeated fighters that have never had a loss and cherry pick. People are much more eager to get in there, test themselves. And he would rather chase a rematch with Usman, apparently, than go after the big money for a payday with Conor McGregor. If you saw, and welcome back, Fayez. Thank you for getting back.
Hey, that's right.
Back on.
I don't know what you got.
Just at the crucial moment.
Yeah.
Well, I disagree with your point. No, sir. I think that the man was not ready. He didn't want to fight. He was not ready. Just watch the fight again. He did not want to fight. 6 days.
Omar, that's not how it works. He rolled the dice, and he made a lot of money from it. He learned a lot, and he feels that he could win a rematch, and he's chasing. He's going to chase a rematch. He will.
Well, he can chase it. He won't get it. There's no way. Kamaru Usman is on a different level now. He's going different. This is what they all do. They always say, "Yeah, you'll have a rematch." Like they'll give. How many other rematches have we seen in UFC? Hardly any. But you said that he was.
Conor McGregor gets a rematch pretty quickly when he loses.
Well, he hasn't with Khabib. He's still waiting.
Money, it makes sense.
He's still waiting for his match with Khabib, I think, on the rematch.
Anyway, Omar, shut up. Thank you. There's no rules tonight. I wanted to ask Fayez about the result of the fight and the wrestling that took place, because Fayez and I have been speaking about martial arts for a long time. I don't know if you'll remember where or when you said this to me, but something that stuck in my head was when you said to me, wrestling is the glue that sticks everything else together. People say, "Oh, do you need striking? Do you need submissions? Do you need kicks? Do you need punches?" Wrestling is the glue that sticks it together. Is that why Usman was able to negate everything that Masvidal threw at him?
Yes, I would say absolutely. And just to unpack that, the reason why that is the case is because if you have the wrestling, you can control where the fight takes place. If you are fighting someone with superior striking, if you've got the wrestling, you can ensure that they don't get to use their superior striking because you take it to the ground. If you are fighting somebody with superior jiu-jitsu, if you have the better wrestling, you can make sure that it never goes to the ground and they don't get to use their jiu-jitsu. You get to determine where the fight's going. And of course, in the flux of a fight, you find that you're on shaky ground, standing with the dude, take him down. Or if you're in hot water on the ground, you use reverse wrestling. That is to make sure that you get off your back and you get to the striking. So if you have wrestling, you can ensure where the fight goes. It gives you control. You can take your opponent outside of their element. That's what I meant by that.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because wrestling, you would think, well, there are no submissions in the Olympic wrestling, and you're not trying to knock anybody out. So there's no way to win. The way you win in wrestling, to pin someone on their back, doesn't win you anything in MMA. No. Yet it's so crucial. And interestingly,
it's yes.
Go on.
I was just saying, it's akin to because it's about positioning, and anyone who's into football will know that, of course, it's goals that win matches, or defending goals. Yeah. But how crucial is it to be in the right place at the right time? To receive the ball and to ensure that the other players are in the right space, so you can set it up so a goal is achieved. And that's what wrestling does. It isn't the blows that result in knockouts. It's not the submissions that result in tap outs, but it's positioning yourself in a place where you can win.
And I've heard that in a jiu-jitsu dojo, position before submission. And this is why when you go through the belt system, the white belt competitions are based purely on position and pins, because you need to learn as soon as, if you're new to martial arts or MMA, and I know the armbar, I'm going to get an armbar, I'm going to get an armbar, but and then
you sacrifice position going for it. Exactly. And it's the same thing you would know with boxing, establishing range and don't headhunt and all this stuff. Positioning.
Yes, exactly. Last point on wrestling for now. Which of the in the Olympics you've got freestyle wrestling and Greco-Roman wrestling? Yeah. Which of the two translates best to MMA?
I mean, they're both. I mean, because Greco-Roman, obviously upper body, no trips. That's so against the cage. I guess again, it's a positioning like against the cage. That is so you can dirty boxing. What's known as dirty boxing. That is to clinch with someone, land blows, and then clinch with them again. In MMA, that's called dirty boxing, because it's kind of like if a boxer was to do that in a boxing match, it would be seen as kind of cheap to hug your opponent, punch and then hug him again. But in MMA it's a legitimate technique. Having Greco-Roman strength there is invaluable. Of course, freestyle wrestling, mat wrestling, what is known as chain wrestling. So that would be that's a very valuable skill to have in MMA, and that's Olympic. Just chasing a takedown, not missing check, but just being able to just switch up your offense until you get the takedown you want. That's important.
Now, I always assumed that the freestyle wrestling, having less rules, less restriction, freestyle, in a sense being closer to MMA rules in a way, would better prepare you for MMA. But apparently, as you mentioned, because of the upright position of the Greco-Roman, a lot of some people say Greco-Roman wrestlers do better because MMA matches take place in that more upright stance than 100%. The more freestyle stuff. You're staying with us, Omar X.
Yeah.
I hope
you definitely get examples. Notes. Oh, is this? Okay, your man. He was a bit. That was the man you told to shut up.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
He took that. He took that on board. He took that note. He took that note like a man on the chin.
Oh dear. Omar, have you ever dabbled in any martial arts? Have you done a bit of karate or Silat is a popular one these days?
Silat is something, I think it might be an Islamic kind of training. I heard it was what the Sahabas did, which were the Prophet Muhammad's friends. I think they partook in that. So I think there's a Malaysian kind of.
I thought Silat was the Malaysian traditional martial art, and being as it is a Muslim country, it's become popular or popularized among some Muslims. Whether the Sahabas were going quite religious now, whether they took part in any training, I don't know. I've heard that the Prophet recommended swimming and wrestling and horse riding, possibly. I think all spiritual teachings should tell you to take care of your body and do some kind of exercise.
Yeah,
I would have thought.
Exercise is vital. Even if you look at the Muslim prayers, I really link that with that's almost exercising for people, especially who don't exercise, especially nowadays as we live sedentary lives, sitting on a chair or facing a computer all day. We don't do any type of exercise really. So the Muslim prayer 5 times a day, I see as really good exercise. And if you analyze what people do in yoga, I had an English friend visiting me in Morocco, and when he saw people doing their prayers, he was like, wow, he assumed it was yoga, and he said people love their yoga in this country. So there was a video going around, doing the rounds, of a woman in a bikini, and it seemed like she was doing the Muslim prayer, but she wasn't. She was just doing her yoga performance, I think, a couple of years ago.
Where do you get these videos from?
Yeah.
Doing,
they do the rounds.
The links are below.
They do
for everyone watching
link,
this on the YouTube. Yeah.
Link it.
So I think exercise is great, but what I will say to your audience and your good selves is simply this: that when I took exercise seriously about 10 years ago or so, through diet and through exercise, I felt fantastic. And if there's anyone who's feeling stressed and is feeling hurt and upset,
those were the days.
Get diet and exercise, and I seriously felt 16 years old again, and I would wake up with a huge smile and I would go to sleep.
10 years.
I'm glad you went there. Woke up with a huge smile. Yes, that's good.
Woke up with a huge smile. Super. Right. And by the way, the link is in the description if anyone wants to join this video chat and descend it into further chaos. But going back to our topic, which is the UFC 251, do you think it was a boring fight, Fayez?
No, it wasn't the most exciting, but it wasn't a snooze fest. I think Masvidal was trying to win, and Kamaru was effectively neutralizing him, which is fair. But yeah, it wasn't spectacular.
Yeah. And is this part of the problem to the layman, the audience that expect to tune in and see people knocking each other out and spectacular displays? The better an athlete gets, or the better and more evenly matched athletes are, they will negate each other very well, and they will end up being accused of being boring, like Floyd Mayweather, or when you get two great teams in the World Cup final, very often you have a 0-0. They're very cagey. They don't want to go 1-0 down, and in MMA, going 1-0 down is a loss. You get submitted or knocked out, it's finished. Yeah. So
especially when you have, I mean, a UFC tried to combat this to some degree by introducing, a few years ago,
golden goal.
It's not new anymore. Well, introducing submission of the night, knockout of the night. So there are bonuses there to be had, but there's also win bonuses. So it kind of
win's a win, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Like what's he called? He used to say, "We parked the bus." Who was the football manager that said that? I think it was Jose Mourinho.
Oh, my mate.
Bus. We win match. Is he a good friend of yours?
Well, I've worked with him, and people might know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Oh, very good.
You
used to play for Chelsea.
Yeah,
super. No. So when I guess that's the only way. There are, I think, is it catch wrestling, or there were other types of wrestling where you could be submitted more than once?
Yeah, absolutely. Josh Barnett being a massive, Josh Barnett is, I would say, in MMA is a massive advocate for that. Of course, we're going back to the early days of MMA. Gracie famously lost to Sakuraba, who is known as the Gracie Hunter after a while because he kept beating the Gracies, and his method was absolutely that. His discipline, his background was submission wrestling. He came from a pro wrestling background. Also, you know, he had his background in traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu, but submission wrestling, because what, if anything, the Gracies lacked was varying takedowns. They kind of used the same conventional takedowns to get the opponent to the ground and submit them.
Okay.
But Sakuraba, he had the wrestling.
Yeah.
So then he could again control where the fight was, and then it was just you know, an amazing statement when he finally beat Royce Gracie.
Wow. Yeah, what an achievement. But I suppose I mean, yeah, go on, Omar.
I just wanted to. There's something that you're missing out, and we're all missing here. Is Kamaru Usman? Oh, Kamaru Usman was his weight. Was what it should have been, and with Masvidal, he had to lose like a stone and a half within a week. Forgive my pronunciation.
I love it.
He had to lose a stone and a half. And if you're going to lose a stone and a half in 6 days, you know, you're not going to be the best. And you know, it was over for the poor guy. I hope he got paid really, really well. But to see him post interview, that look on his face, that grimacing look, and just that feeling of macabre all around him, it was not. I think it meant more to him. I'm sure he regretted this, despite having whatever money he was paid.
I don't think he regretted it. I think he made a lot of
was
money and learned a lot
every time.
Yeah. That's how you become a winner. Is you risk the loss, right?
Yeah.
But if he gets, if he gets another shot, I'm very reluctant. And even McGregor, he still hasn't had his shot, his rematch with Khabib, and it's been 2+3 years probably. So those rematches don't come very easy. Plus, he's touching 40. Masvidal is touching 40. So I don't know if he waits. He still needs to have a couple more fights before he gets to Usman, and by then maybe Usman's in a trilogy with somebody. So it doesn't really work like it should. Perhaps in boxing they have an immediate rematch clause. It's going to be tough, I think, for him, and I hope that we can get back on the show and discuss his rematch if it ever happens. But I'm very hesitant and reluctant and credulous to accept that he won't get a rematch anytime soon.
Well, we'll see about that. He might not, but he was absolutely going to take the chance. It was worth him taking that risk.
Yeah, and he's not, as I said, one of these fighters with an undefeated record. He's in the limelight because he's been willing to take the risk. I was looking at his fight record, and he wins almost always by knockout or TKO. He's not a submission artist.
He comes from that backyard brawl background. If people remember Kimbo Slice,
that's right.
That you know, he comes from that, and then obviously he's trained in, you know, legitimate disciplines. But
this might be going back. This might be going back to what we were saying earlier about as people improve and they negate each other. Is it me, or are we seeing far fewer submissions in MMA, or at least in the UFC?
I can't say I've consciously noted that, but you might be right.
I don't know. Well, I'll have to look at statistics.
The stats, yeah. But it does seem to come in waves. It comes in waves, and that is the beauty of MMA, is that it doesn't remain stagnant. There was a time where no one would jab in MMA. Like, it wouldn't be the thing that you'd throw your hands, you'd try and land haymakers, you'd throw knees, but you wouldn't really jab much. It was, I mean, there was a few fights that really changed that. The significance of ones that come to mind are BJ Penn versus Sean Sherk. He just kept jabbing Sean Sherk, who was the superior wrestler, the shorter wrestler. So he didn't have the range. He just jab, 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 jab. So Sean Sherk could never get close enough to close the distance to get a takedown. He couldn't clinch. He couldn't use. He was a much stronger, much shorter dude. But yeah, BJ Penn used his range, used a jab, and then finally finished him with a knee. Another two good examples is GSP versus Josh Koscheck. And you know, he jabbed. Yeah, GSP did it a couple of times in different fights. But yeah, and then it became a thing. Use the jab. It's an absolutely useful tool. It's not just for the boxer. Another one is throwing the front kick to the face. People like it's a very common technique now. It's one thing to watch for. But prior to Anderson Silva,
who am I thinking of? Well, there you go, Anderson Silva. Yeah,
Anderson Silva versus Vitor Belfort. He did it just simple as that. I'll front like a teep to the face, boom, under the chin, knocked him out. And then after that, not long after that, Lyoto Machida did it to Randy Couture, and we've seen it many times since then. So these techniques come into play. Another one like John Jones, what is commonly called as the oblique kick, at least that colloquially the commentators have been calling it that, is when you kind of it's to the knee, and it prevents your opponent coming forward because they're scared that they're going to hyperextend and break their own leg. It's just that, so it's not a vicious. It's not a vicious like blow, but it could lead to a massive injury.
I've heard people talking about wanting to ban that in MMA.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. Rampage Jackson hated it when Rampage Jackson fought John Jones. He lost, but he lost by choke, I believe, rear naked choke. But he complained a lot about that. And do
people say that it's bad sportsmanship to throw it, or you know,
because it could ruin someone's career, is what the argument is. You know,
it's so difficult, isn't it? Because it's within the rules set. You know, some people might not like getting hit in the face, but that's part of MMA. It's a legitimate target, but I can see why people would have negative feelings about it.
Yeah.
Do you think we will be seeing a lot of foot stomping from now on?
Well, yeah, but that's a relic as well. Like from a lot of, you look at the old school Vale-Tudo fights, like, you know, pre, you know, MMA's, you know, what it is now anyway. Vale-Tudo and Wanderlei Silva comes from that, and you know, a bunch of those shoot box guys, and there's a lot of foot stomps and stuff like that,
and why not?
So yeah, again, it's in waves. Yeah, why not? Absolutely. It's just as legitimate as when an opponent's on the ground and someone like Dan Henderson will cover the mouth so they can't breathe, and it looks, well, that's, you know, that's cheating. It's not. It's perfectly legitimate. Do that. Make it uncomfortable for them.
Yeah,
you know,
why not? It's just funny when these things are sort of frowned upon and seen as bad form, but it's within the rules.
It's a fight. Yeah.
It's a fight. Yeah, it's a fight. Conor McGregor not long ago put the shoulder strike on the mat.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, creative.
Yeah, it's what can you really do when you're creative? But it can lead to a form of fighting that isn't as easy on the eye, isn't as sellable. As you said, they have,
although creative strikes. Yeah. And I guess my broader point was in response to what you're saying about people submitting people less. And I used examples of how techniques come and go, and all of my examples were strikes. But the same does also happen in the world of submissions. Like dust chokes have come and gone a couple of times. You know, arm bars. It's a while since you've seen someone get, well, there was a period of time it
Ronda Rousey
was like a rarity.
Was doing them
Yeah,
famously.
absolutely, that was her thing.
But that was you're right.
Yeah, I haven't seen a knee bar for a long time. Like leg locks, Rosamund Powell Harris, one of the scariest leg lock dudes ever. But it's how we haven't seen that for a long time. But
I don't think I've seen a knee bar since our friend from the gym caught me in one.
There you go.
A knee bar specialist. Yeah, no, that is.
Yeah, exactly. When you don't expect it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's the beauty of MMA.
Yeah, and it's unpredictable. There's so many ways to win, so many ways to lose. I was talking with the coach at Pro Mai a while ago, Lee. We were talking about Muay Thai and striking techniques, and he was saying that the stance in Muay Thai is quite square on, and is that the most efficient stance for striking?
Well, if you're against a wrestler, arguably No, I don't. What was he?
Well,
what did
no,
he say?
but even against another Thai fighter, he said that there's an element of Thai fight culture which encourages the fighters to stand and trade and exchange, and you're gonna whack my leg, I'm gonna whack your leg, and we'll see who can take it. A tactician who's not worried about looking like a coward or doesn't care about Thai honor might be less square on, might be a bit more hit and run,
That makes sense.
like Mayweather. I know that Thai fighters watching this wouldn't like that, and we tried to get hold of Andre McIntyre earlier on, but he hasn't got involved. He's adamant that Thai fighting is the most efficient form of striking martial art. It's the art of 8 limbs, which I'm sure maybe it is, but I just wonder if you tweak the tactics somewhat, you like when Spain began this tiki-taka tactic of keeping the ball in football, and then other people started parking the bus. You come with a new idea, like Mayweather hit and run.
It's hard to argue at this point that any one tactic, that any one discipline is ever going to trump sheer versatility, the sheer ability to adapt. That's always going to win, surely. Like that is the strength of the modern MMA fighter that the previous incarnations didn't have, is that the ability to adapt. I don't know.
Well, I'll refer you again to something that Andre McIntyre said to me, a proud Muay Thai fighter. He said, or his coach had told him, beware the soldier with one gun. Because he knows his gun
Bruce Lee.
Very well. What is it?
That Bruce Lee quote. I'm gonna end up paraphrasing. But he'd rather. It's just. Let me just mess the whole thing up. He said something like he'd rather fight a man
than a woman.
Yes, he'd rather fight a man than a woman. No. But basically, the idea is, this is me, George Bushing the quote, is that the dude who knows 10,000 kicks. The dude who knows 10,000 kicks is less dangerous than the guy who knows one kick but he's thrown it 10,000 times. And I don't remember the exact quote, but
Yes, I know what you mean, and that is, I can see that.
There's something to that.
There is something to that. Giving tactics away, my go-to submission.
But the problem with that is, like, imagine. Yeah, absolutely. But the problem with that is that it might be true. Broadly, there's a truth there. But imagine someone who's practiced the jab. He's given his 10,000 hours on the jab, and then you stand with the dude, he's just going to jab you to death. Yeah. But then what happens when he meets the guy, and the strategy that he has practiced for 10,000 hours is how to avoid the jab. Well, who wins? And so that's why having one tool, it's never going to beat being the ability to adjust.
Yeah, exactly. And I was the other point I wanted to bring up that you mentioned was watch out for the gas tank of Masvidal. Do you think it did let him down? Well, he even said afterwards that he could have had a better cardio.
Well, that's always going to be something when you don't get a full training camp, is that your gas tank pump might not be what it would be on fight night. Having said that, I do think that Kamaru did a great job of wearing him down, breaking, the rhythm and putting him in places he doesn't want to be, which is going to slow you down. I heard it said by some, I can't remember who the pundit was, but he said that, controversially perhaps, he said that if Masvidal had a full camp, he thinks it would have been even more of a mismatch in Kamaru's favor. So it would have been a worse defeat, because if he would have fought differently, he would have fought more confidently, he wouldn't have preserved his energy, he would have put himself in danger. And there's, you can't know, but that's, it's not a given. It's not a given that if Masvidal had a full camp, it would be a more difficult fight for Kamaru. Not necessarily, because he was conserving himself, Masvidal, early, because he knew he didn't have the gas tank he did. So we don't know.
That's a very interesting point. So he didn't come out swinging and think, let me try and finish him early because I've only got 2 or 3 rounds in me.
Yeah, he stayed busy. It's not like he was coasting, but yeah, he alluded to that in post fight as well. Is that he did, he knew that he could get tired if he expires too quickly.
Yeah, it's a good point. I might have mentioned to you this before. I think a gas tank can be a very mental thing as well, and maybe elite athletes and professionals, accomplished professionals, don't ever have that adrenaline dump. But if anyone can gas out if they try their hardest, for 20 seconds, I mean, the 100 meters is only 10 seconds long.
Yeah, Tabata training is based on
it conditions you for it can you have, and I think Masvidal to say I can't remember the expression he used. I tried to fight in bursts. What's the word when you fight off and on? I tried to fight him there was an expression he used, but it's escaped me. But there is that, and it can go against you. I think when one of the times Vladimir Klitschko got knocked out, it was because he had a guy hurt. I can't remember who it was. Might have been it was the South African chap he lost to, but he had a guy, or it might have been Ross Purity. Vladimir Klitschko had a couple of knockout losses that blemish his record really to lesser competition, and he had the guy hurt, went for the kill, didn't finish him off, and then was absolutely drained.
Yes,
and that's why when he knocked Anthony Joshua down, his brother Vitaly Klitschko mistakenly warned him and said, don't put your foot down, he's going to gas out, so just wait, the tide is turning in your favor now. But Anthony Joshua, that's
the difference between a mature fighter and an immature fighter. You will often see just that.
But it cost him in that instance. It cost him.
Yeah, you're right.
So sometimes you do need that. But yeah, it's 50-50, and it could have gone the other way. And if he'd have won, we'd have said, "Oh, thank God he listened to Vitaly." But I definitely think if when you try your best, I remember a fight I lost up at the Troxy. I came out swinging. I put the guy down with the first shot that I landed, but he grabbed onto me, and he got a guillotine on me that I got off, and I went into sort of panic mode, and we were in the clinch, and I instinctively sort of did like a hip throw. The judo days came back to me, but we landed, and I nearly had him in inverted side control, but he crept around the back and sunk in the rear naked, and that was it. And he came to see me in the dressing room, and he was like still a bit wobbly. He goes, "Oh, why did you take me down? You were lighting me up when we were on the feet." And I said, "Oh, I was panicked." So the panic button is the worst thing for any fighter, and I guess professionals don't have that as much. But if you do try to finish a job, and maybe that's why I am, although I don't know if I'm imagining it, are we seeing fewer submissions because of the risk in going for that? But it's like,
well, that's the thing.
It's elite sport, isn't it?
Yeah.
The primary school, when they play football, it's 10-9 by half time.
Yeah, exactly.
When low level fighters compete, I think
it can be more exciting.
It can be more exciting, and the better one will come out on top much more earlier.
Yeah.
More earlier.
What happened to your mate, by the way?
Oh no, I think he must have thought I told him to.
It wasn't you. You didn't kick him off.
No, I didn't kick him off, and he's welcome to come back in. But I think maybe he felt a bit out of his depth. Another night we'll definitely we'll talk we'll talk poetry with him.
Yeah.
He's a fellow wordsmith. But Fayez, look, thank you for joining me. Is there any glaring point I missed in my assessment of what happened at UFC 251?
No, but I will say this. I was thinking, this is what I was thinking as I was watching it, because I was mindful. You put me on the spot and said, have you got? And I said Masvidal. And then I quickly thought, I felt nervous about it because Kamaru is no joke. But the reason, the one case to be made for Masvidal at that point, in my opinion, was momentum, because, and people don't often take this into account, is that the momentum of a fighter, when he's stacked up a few wins, he starts to feel unbeatable. Also, branding, he's got a fan base. Dana White singing his praises. I mean, they had some problems recently, but the press at least is looking at him favorably. I think all of that can culminate in a psychological advantage, and potentially a psychological for the fighter, and potentially a psychological disadvantage for their opponent. And what was interesting, and so that was one thing I was thinking, well, we have seen in MMA how that can work in the favor of the guy with momentum. Probably I'd say the most significant example of that would be when Conor McGregor fought Jose Aldo. Like, McGregor had so much insane momentum. The Irish fans were so behind him. And of course, he played the psychological warfare very aggressively, much more so than Masvidal did, but he did play it as well. And then it's not to say that without that momentum, he would never beat Jose, but Jose was no joke. He's one of the greatest fighters ever, and he knocked him out in 9 seconds. You could see a visibly shaken Jose Aldo walk into the octagon that day, and then just how it wasn't just McGregor who beat him that day. It was all the momentum that went with it. So I was thinking, okay, but what I didn't think of was how, well, number one, it is a different thing, but the sheer momentum that Masvidal is experiencing, it doesn't quite equate to what McGregor was, or where McGregor was. But what I was thinking is that Kamaru, he's the champ, but he's kind of understated. He doesn't have a fan base like Masvidal. He isn't branded in the same way, and he doesn't have that, that mystique about him that Masvidal did. So I thought to myself, okay, well, maybe this could be, and also because of how popular this fight came very, very, very quickly, that could psychologically potentially throw Kamaru off his game. But what I didn't really take into account is, of course, we're living right now in the time of COVID. There's no crowd, and I just think, I'm certainly not saying Kamaru would not have won if it was, but I'm just saying how much less of a factor it is when there's no crowd, because Masvidal could have all the momentum as well. Not because if the stadium was full, I bet you there'd be a lot of chanting for Masvidal. And I'm not saying that Usman would have buckled under that, but it could have had an effect. But in an empty stadium, it means nothing. It's really about, 2 men fighting, and that was interesting.
That's a very good point. Well, he has, in a way, still got the momentum, I think, for the rematch. Maybe we'll be saying the same thing about the trilogy. I don't know. But I do think often if it's close, the loser of the first fight has an advantage in the rematch because the winner doesn't know what to change.
You're right.
But we will find out. Well, Fayez, thank you very much for doing another one of these. Maybe next time it'll be poetry, yeah?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, superb.
All right, nice one.
You take care, my mate. Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you.